Welcome to Voices of BioWellnessX with Daniel and Sophie. Today, we're really taking a deep dive into a biological connection that, honestly, it's pretty surprising. It might fundamentally change how you think about wellness. We're talking about the fascinating, complex interplay between cannabis compounds and your own digestive system.
That's right. And our mission today is to, well, cut through some of the noise and really show you what the research sources are actually revealing. We're looking at how specific compounds in cannabis, especially when they pass through the digestive system, like with edibles, interact with the trillions of microbes living in your gut. Think of this as your shortcut to understanding this whole emerging field of the cannabis-gut biome relationship. It influences everything from inflammation right up to the signals your gut sends your brain.
And the most incredible part, this whole journey, it starts with the 100 trillion microorganisms. That's what, more than stars in the galaxy, living inside you right now?
Exactly. So we have to start by defining this ecosystem, right? The gut microbiota. It's made up of roughly 100 trillion microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, viruses, all forming this incredibly complex, personalized ecosystem in your digestive tract. And they do far more than just process food. These microbes are metabolic powerhouses. They produce essential vitamins. They break down complex fibers we can't digest ourselves. And crucially, they actively train and sort of modulate your immune system.
And they aren't just working in isolation down there. They're constantly communicating, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the microbiota gut-brain axis. I always think of it like the body's superhighway, linking the gut directly to the central nervous system. And this pathway is a critical regulator for, well, everything from your mood to your metabolic health.
Absolutely. And when that highway is clear, when it's balanced, things run smoothly. But when it gets disrupted, say by chronic stress, a poor diet, infections, things like that, that imbalance can actually trigger inflammation in the gut lining. And that's where we start seeing the development of issues like inflammatory bowel disease, IBD, or the kind of discomfort you see with irritable bowel syndrome, IBS.
Okay, so to layer in the next really key piece of this puzzle, we need to bring in the endocannabinoid system. The ECS is the body's own internal regulatory network. It produces the body's natural cannabis-like compounds, endocannabinoids.
Right. And here's why the ECS is so vital for digestion. Its two main receptors, CB1 and CB2, aren't just in the brain. They're highly concentrated throughout the entire gastrointestinal tract. That whole network is sometimes called the enteric nervous system. And these receptors act like master regulators. They govern key functions like appetite, how we perceive painful signals coming from the gut, the level of inflammation, and also gut motility, how quickly food moves through.
Okay, let's unpack this central mechanism then, because this is where it gets really interesting for me. We have this huge bacterial community, right? And we have this internal control system, the ECS, concentrated right there in the gut lining. You mentioned a sophisticated feedback loop connecting them. How does that actually work? Like, which one's driving the bus?
Well, neither is solely in charge. It's more like a constant conversation, a mutual back and forth. The ECS itself is crucial for maintaining what we call intestinal homeostasis. It helps keep that gut barrier sealed tight, preventing that leaky gut issue people talk about. But here's the fascinating connection to the bigger picture. The gut microbiome itself actually influences the ECS. So when your resident microbes ferment the dietary fiber you eat, they produce this really critical set of compounds.
But hang on, you're saying the bacteria are actually helping regulate our internal cannabis system?
Yeah.
How does that chemical communication happen?
It happens through things called short-chain fatty acids, or SCFAs. These are powerful metabolites produced when microbes break down fiber. Think of SCFAs, especially one called butyrate, as key chemical messengers. The research sources we looked at show these SCFAs can directly modulate both the activity and the expression. How many receptors are there of those CB1 and CB2 ECS receptors right there in the gut lining?
Wow. Okay, that is the aha moment right there. So what this really means is that your unique bacterial ecosystem partly dictates how well your own internal regulatory system, the ECS, is functioning, particularly when it comes to calming inflammation and keeping that gut barrier strong. It's like a truly personalized regulatory system, customized by your diet and your specific mix of bacteria. This is fascinating stuff. And before we jump into how external cannabinoids, from cannabis change this delicate balance, just a quick note, if you want to learn more about comprehensive wellness strategies that are backed by science, do be sure to visit BioWellnessX.com. We have guides and tools there that can help you understand your unique metabolic needs and support your overall well-being.
Okay, so now let's turn our attention to what happens when we introduce those external cannabinoids, the compounds directly from the cannabis plant. The research reviewed shows pretty clearly that cannabis exposure can significantly and quite specifically alter that bacterial landscape in the gut.
And the sources point to increases in certain um, very beneficial gut microbes after chronic cannabis use. They specifically name-check species like Faecalibacterium prausnitzii and Akkermansia mucinifila quite often.
Yes, and this is a really critical insight. We should pause on their function for a second. These species aren't just vaguely good, they have really crucial jobs. Akkermansia mucinifila, for instance, is essential because it helps maintain the protective mucus layer of the gut. A strong mucus layer means a strong gut barrier. It's fundamental.
And Faecalibacterium, what's its role?
Faecalibacterium is a major producer of butyrate, which is one of those key SCFAs we were just talking about. So an increase in Faecalibacterium likely means an increase in the very molecules that feed your colon cells and help modulate your ECS. It suggests this sort of self-reinforcing anti-inflammatory loop might be getting boosted.
Right. Given the direct contact seems to matter here, why does the delivery method, say, edibles versus inhaling, become so important in this whole discussion?
Well, it comes down to anatomy, really. When you ingest an edible, the compounds, the THC, the CBD, but also terpenes, flavonoids, everything, pass directly through the entire digestive tract. This gives maximum sustained contact time with the gut microbiome. Unlike inhaled cannabis, which mostly bypasses the gut by getting absorbed through the lungs, edibles give the microbes a real chance to metabolize, modify, and interact with those compounds as they travel through.
Okay, that immediately brings up the idea of an individualized response, doesn't it? If your specific bacteria are modifying the compounds and everyone's gut biome is unique, well, the therapeutic outcome must be highly variable then.
Exactly. The source material really emphasizes this. The resulting effect depends heavily on the dose, the frequency of use, the specific product's cannabinoid ratio, its terpene profile, and crucially, on that individual's baseline bacterial composition before they even take anything. We're learning that certain bacterial species can actually perform the first step of metabolizing THC and CBD, potentially creating new active molecules. So in a very real sense, your gut is helping decide what the ultimate effect of the substance is on your body.
The therapeutic potential here seems huge, and it's definitely attracting serious clinical investigation. What are some of the key takeaways for specific digestive conditions?
Well, we see encouraging data, although it's definitely mixed in some areas. Some studies suggest cannabinoids might help reduce inflammation markers in conditions like IBD, probably by acting on those CB receptors in the gut lining to kind of calm down excessive immune responses. There's also evidence pointing towards benefits for managing physical discomfort and normalizing intestinal transit, movement in functional bowel disorders like IBS. And of course, the anti-nausea application, particularly for chemotherapy patients, that remains one of the most well-supported clinical uses.
We can't really talk about cannabis and metabolism without addressing what some people call the munchies paradox. How can the research show that cannabis clearly increases appetite in the short term, yet some studies find chronic users sometimes have lower body weight compared to non-users?
Yeah, it's a fascinating contradiction, isn't it? It really highlights the complexity of the ECS. While that acute hunger effect, the munchies, is definitely real and mediated by the ECS. The hypothesis for chronic use is that it might lead to longer-term changes in metabolic profiles, maybe shifts in how the body handles fat storage adipose tissue function. The research is definitely ongoing, but it suggests the ECS is involved in much more than just immediate hunger signals. It's tied into overall energy balance in complex ways.
Okay, pulling back a bit, we have to remember the caveats and limitations here. Where does the science still need to catch up?
Good point. There are several key limitations. First, there's the classic issue of association versus causation. Many large population studies show correlations, but they struggle to definitively rule out other lifestyle factors that might differ between users and non-users. Second, many of the clinical outcome studies are relatively small or preliminary, and they often use very different methods or outcome measures, which makes comparing them difficult. Third, the sheer variability in cannabis products themselves, different THC.CBD ratios, all the different terpenes means results from one study using one product might not apply to another. And we also have to mention a critical caution. While generally seen as anti-inflammatory, there's some indication that cannabis might actually worsen certain specific severe gut inflammation situations in some individuals. It's not universally beneficial.
This whole deep dive really underscores that, regardless of external compounds, focusing on overall digestive wellness is fundamental. The source material actually provides 5 clear, science-backed ways everyone can support their gut microbiome starting today.
Absolutely. These are like your bedrock strategies for building gut resilience. Let's list them out. 1. Feed the right organisms. You really want to aim for about 25 to 35 grams of diverse dietary fiber daily. That means variety is key. Different vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains. Remember, diversity in their food source equals resilience and better SCFA production from your bacterial community.
Okay, diversity is key. What's number 2?
2. Include fermented foods. Regularly bring in foods with live beneficial bacteria. Think high-quality yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, maybe some kombucha. These introduce live cultures that can positively influence your existing microbial community structure.
Makes sense. Probiotics through food. Number 3.
3. Intentionally manage stress. This one is really non-negotiable. Chronic stress directly disrupts your gut ecosystem through that gut-brain axis we talked about. So finding regular, intentional stress management practices that work for you is essential for maintaining a calm, healthy gut environment.
Crucial link, that gut-brain one. Okay, number 4.
4. Prioritize sleep quality. Believe it or not, your gut bacteria operate on a circadian rhythm, just like you do. Studies show that poor or disrupted sleep can alter their composition pretty quickly, like within just days. So aiming for that consistent 7 to 9 hours is important for them too.
Wow, even bacteria need their sleep schedule. And the last one.
5. Minimize unnecessary antibiotics. Use antibiotics only when they are truly necessary as prescribed by a doctor. And if you do need them, it's a good idea to follow up afterwards, maybe aggressively, with probiotics and plenty of fiber to help actively rebuild the community structure that was likely damaged.
That's a powerful list. Simple actions, but it sounds like consistency is the real secret ingredient here. And what's encouraging is that these small, consistent steps can compound into significant, even measurable changes in digestive health, sometimes within just a few weeks. And speaking of consistency and targeted support, if you are looking for specific, tested products that might align with your wellness goals, you could explore options like our feel-good gummies at BioWellnessX, which feature full-spectrum CBD and L-theanine for calm support, or perhaps our pure CBD oil tincture for straightforward CBD. You can check out the full range and learn more over at BioWellnessX.com.
So, to kind of synthesize everything we've covered today, the biological connection between external cannabinoids and your digestive health, it's absolutely real, and it's multifaceted. It works through the ECS receptors, it involves inflammatory pathways, and maybe most surprisingly, through direct interactions with your personalized bacterial populations. The key takeaway, though, is that the science is promising, but still incomplete. And because individual biology dictates the response so heavily, any therapeutic approach involving these compounds really has to be highly personalized.
So why should you, our listener, ultimately care about all this complexity? Because supporting your fundamental digestive ecosystem through consistent diet, good sleep, managing stress, that remains the strongest, most evidence-based strategy for long-term overall wellness. That's true regardless of any external supplements or compounds you might choose to explore down the line.
Exactly. And here's maybe a final provocative thought to leave you with, something that comes directly from the research on this gut-brain cannabis interaction. Studies using what are called germ-free mice. These are mice raised entirely without any gut bacteria show that the absence of this microbial community dramatically changes how cannabinoids influence their behavior and their physiology. So this raises a really profound question for all of us. To what extent is our own conscious experience of cannabinoids actually being mediated or shaped by the trillions of tiny silent life forms living inside us right now?
Something to think about. Thanks for listening to Voices of BioWellnessX with Daniel and Sophie. And remember, free shipping within the U.S. on orders above $35.